Welcome to Journaling with Nature, the podcast for those who want to turn curiosity into wonder, a pencil sketch into a rabbit hole of discovery, a moment of stillness into a life full of joy. I'm your host, Bethan Burton. Let's open the pages of our nature journals and explore this world together. Hello, this is episode 50. This feels like a really big milestone. 50 episodes sounds like a lot. Sounds like a lot to me. And I've been working on this project for almost a year, I guess. And I'm pretty proud of 50 episodes. And I'm pretty happy to have this time to chat with you, to be here with you, and to share our passion, which is nature journaling and nature connection. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of these 50 episodes and for listening. And thank you especially to those people who support the podcast on Patreon. It makes a huge difference. And today I'm going to do something a little bit different, which is I'm going to do a solo show. And there's something I've been meaning to do a solo show on for a while. And that is that I want to talk about nature journaling with kids of different ages. So I did a workshop for the Wild Wonder Teachers Conference this year, back in June, and it was a breakout session. And so on Zoom, the breakout sessions aren't recorded. So this was one of 4 concurrent nature journaling workshops that covered a different topic on teaching nature journaling. And I chose to teach on this topic because I am really passionate about nature journaling with children. And so if you are a parent or a grandparent, a homeschooling family, a teacher, a kindergarten teacher, or anyone who has children in their lives, an aunt, a friend, this might be of interest to you. So what I'm going to do is talk about nature journaling with different age groups and how that looks, what it feels like, what you can do with each age group, and how it's different. Have you ever heard the saying, shared joy is double joy and shared sorrow is half sorrow? I love this saying, and I can't remember where it came from, but it really resonates with me. And I was thinking about this saying recently, and it came to me that shared wonder is double wonder. So when you look at the natural world and you find something that you find amazing, sharing that amazement, sharing that wonder with someone else, it amplifies the experience and it makes it even more incredible. And we can share this wonder and amazement with children and amplify it within ourselves and within them. It's such a beautiful thing to share. So I thought that a podcast could be a good way to revisit the information that I shared at the Teachers Conference and open up this conversation. I'm also going to do a blog post on my website, which will have more of this information written down in a different format, because sometimes it's easier to integrate information when you see it written as opposed to hearing it presented in this way. So the first thing I did when I was thinking about this topic was to divide the different ages into 3 groups. So I thought about it in terms of the early years, so 0 to 4 years old, the primary years, ages 5 to 12, and the teenage years, so ages 13 to 18. Nature journaling with each of these 3 different age ranges looks really different. Their needs are different, their abilities are different, and so when we are interacting and nature journaling with kids of different ages, we're going to present different activities, we're going to speak in a different way. So I'm going to chat about each of these 3 age groups and what I think nature journaling looks like for them. But before I do that, I want to mention a few things that are important for children of any age. The first thing is that kids of all ages, but especially the really little ones, need to have their basic needs covered first before they're able to focus on journaling. So this means making sure kids are safe and warm, protected from the sun and insects, and being certain that they have water and food at hand. You might like to bring something for them to sit on if the area is particularly rocky or weedy. When we cover all of these basic needs, it means that they'll be able to focus on journaling. This actually goes for everyone, including ourselves as adults. It's important not to be distracted by sunburn or mosquitoes or whatever else it might be. It's hard to relax and concentrate when you're fighting these things. So get the basic things covered and the day will be much more successful. Another thing that can be helpful for kids of all ages is to have a dedicated nature journaling kit. If you're a parent, this might mean having a special bag or backpack with a nature journal, the colors you need, pens, and other supplies. And you can put this beside the front door in a special place where you know where it is so that you can grab it and go when the inspiration to go journaling arrives. If you have a dedicated kit, it'll save a whole lot of fuss because it gets complicated when you're trying to get one child or a group of children out the door while also gathering up materials, can't find your pencils, can't find the water brush. Now the little ones are playing Lego and they don't want to go after all. If you can just grab a bag and go, it's more likely to be successful. For classroom teachers or kindergarten groups, this could look like having all the nature journals and nature journal supplies in one box that you can just grab and take outdoors when the time's right. Again, this works for us as individual nature journalists too. It's really useful to have everything in one place so that we don't have to search for things when the time's right, when we feel inspired. When a small window of time for nature journaling opens up, it's important to be able to take that window instead of using that time to search for pens and nature journaling kits. So now I'm going to go through the different groups and talk about what nature journaling looks like for different ages and how we can adapt. The early years, ages 0 to 4, is the group that I have the most experience with personally. I've taught groups of every age, but I often work with kindergartens and playgroups, and I also have a little boy who's been nature journaling beside me since he was old enough to hold a paintbrush. At this age, it's really important to remember that time spent in nature should be play. Play is the way that little ones learn, and play is also fun and engaging for them, so they are going to get the most out of their time in nature when it's play. It's also important to remember that it's going to be messy. When you give a child of this age a whole bunch of art supplies, they are going to paint themselves, they're going to paint the grass, they might even paint each other, and that's okay. Messiness is part of play, and messiness is also part of nature play. So let yourself relax into that and know that that's part of their learning at this age. At this age also, one of the really key parts of nature journaling is talking. Because this age can't necessarily represent things with accurate drawings and they can't write yet, talking with a grown-up is a way of exploring the world around them. So if you're a parent or grandparent or a kindergarten teacher, remember that talking with your child or your children about nature is actually nature journaling at this age. I always define nature journaling as capturing our observations of nature on paper using words, pictures, and numbers. But at this age, talking is a way of capturing nature observations, not on paper, but in the hearts and minds of the children. I genuinely believe this. I believe that nature experiences in childhood are held inside us, in our hearts and our minds, in our bodies, and we carry that for the rest of our lives. So we are nature journaling with our children when we speak and give them experiences in nature. Sit with the children and talk and talk and talk. Talk about what you notice and ask them what they notice. Get excited about these observations. Show them your wonder and your enthusiasm about what you're seeing, and that will transfer to them. One thing I think is important is to use specific words, even with very young children. You can say, "Look, I see a painted bunting," instead of, "Look, there's a bird." I remember my son was saying species names of birds he saw around him when he was 1. He would say butcherbird, a noisy miner, and these were among his first words. You can be specific about colours too. Little ones can learn to differentiate between cyan and blue, and you can use words like magenta and maroon and beige, and these can be part of their everyday vocabulary. When you're using these words when nature journaling together. Talk about the different shades of green you see together and say what they remind you of. So you might say, look at the light green of that leaf. The color's the same as the green of your apple. Practicing connections like these will help them make these connections too and broaden their vocabulary and words that they naturally use to describe nature. At this time, you can use a range of different art materials. Simple and cheap student watercolor sets are so good. You can use crayons, felt pens, or colored pencils, anything that they feel comfortable with. I find for very young kids, watercolor is great because they can get lots of color onto the page really easily. I have these palettes that I get for under $10, which have a huge range of colors. I love them because they're so beautiful and the children are really inspired by the range of choices they have. I think that one really important aspect here is modeling. So by that I mean when you're nature journaling, the children in your care will also want to do nature journaling. So go out with them and show them what you see, and just remember to talk, always talking. A back and forward exchange about nature with them is what it's all about. One thing I love to do at this age is to create a nature collection. Picking up natural treasures is such a wonderful sensory thing to do. You can find an object and talk about its texture, its color, and all the things you experience with your senses. Is it smooth? Is it rough? Is it spiky? You can even explore it with magnifying glasses or magnifying tools like jeweler's loupes. Magnifying tools help children see details that they might have passed over otherwise, and it's so exciting. Remember to always talk about what you're seeing through a magnifying tool or just with the naked eye. Help them say what they see out loud, and you can model this by doing it yourself. Another thing I want to mention about this age is that it's absolutely okay to collaborate on a journal page with your little one. You might like to draw a picture of what you're seeing and talk out loud about the details of what you're noticing, and then they can add color or extra details right on top of your drawing. I do this with my little one often, and it's a great way to do the practice together. You can also add written notes to their page. So before you do this, make sure you ask them first if it's okay to write, if they want you to write on their page. You can let them say what they observed, and you can write that in words beside their picture. So there are lots of different nature journaling activities which are great for this age. A lot of them are messy, and I'm just going to run through a little list now, and you can find this list on my blog. The link will be in the show notes for this episode. You can do leaf prints, so you can paint one side of a leaf and use that to make a print. You can do leaf rubbings, which is where you put the leaf under the paper and use a crayon to rub over the top to find the texture. You can do handprints with mud. All these things are very sensory, and it's just about developing an interaction between the child, nature, and the paper. So you can do any sort of mark making outside. So you can just go outside with the child, bring mark making tools, set them up, paints, pens, and crayons, and just let them go for it. Let them make marks depending on how they feel and what they see and what they want to express in that moment. You can put leaves into their journals using packing tape. You can just get a piece of packing tape and stick it right over the top of the leaf as a way of preserving a leaf that they found. You can do a nature scavenger hunt, so you can send them out and look for something smooth or shiny or spiky. You can draw patterns in the dirt with a stick. You can count things. That's a way of using numbers in the journal. And so you can count birds or flowers or fruit or anything that you see around you. Another one that my son and I used to love doing is following ants with a piece of chalk. So we have an area with bricks out the front of our house, and if you take a piece of chalk and you put it on the ground behind an ant, and then you let the child follow the ant as it walks where it will, you get an experience again where the child is interacting with nature and making marks and learning something. So the child is learning something about the behavioral patterns of ants, and at the same time recording that in their own way. So these are just some ideas about how to nature journal with young ones. I would love to hear your ideas too. So the next age bracket is the primary years, ages 5 to 12. In this age group, children are expanding their awareness and experience of the world. So they're really starting to understand more, take in more, make connections. And this is a really great time to start using words, pictures, and numbers in their nature journals, and also bringing in John Muir-Laws's 3 prompts: I notice, I wonder, and it reminds me of. I found that this age group are really particularly good at making connections using the prompt, it reminds me of. So that's something that you can foster in them and see what amazing connections they come out with. One thing that I find really significant that happens during this age range is that around the middle and upper ages of this range, around 8 or 9, children start to get nervous about making art. They begin to judge their own drawing, and many people stop making art at this age. And so it's really important that we understand this and that we tread lightly here and be really sensitive to their needs at this point to help them through that fear so that they don't give up, so that they know that art is a skill that gets better with practice, not a talent that they're born with. So one way to do this is really important not to praise artwork or artistic talent. So that doesn't mean that you can't give positive feedback. You can. It's just important not to say, wow, you're so good at that, you have artistic talent, or you're a natural artist. But instead, notice what they noticed. So you could say instead, wow, you really added a lot of detail when you were drawing the leaf veins. Or you could say, I noticed that you've drawn this bird. What was the bird doing? And ask them for more details. So in this way, you're helping them interact with their observations, but not reinforcing a fixed mindset or fears about art. One thing that we can do at this age is give them specific instructions on art. So if they want to improve using watercolor, then seek out resources, books, or videos that can give specific instruction on something that they want to learn. You can bring in different art tools like fine liners, color pencils, watercolor pencils, and help them feel comfortable with them. Along with the new tools, giving them instruction that will help them use them with confidence without art fear. If you're a beginner yourself and you feel like you don't have the confidence or the knowledge to teach them art skill, that's fine. That's perfect. Let them see that art is a skill that's developed over time, and you and the children you're with can develop that skill at the same time. You will be able to show them something that you worked on 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, and something that you're working on now, and how your skill has developed. And this will show them that art skill is something that grows with practice and with time. So there are some activities which are really great for this age group, and I would say, again, keep it fun and make it into a game. So you can do things like a color search, so you can give the children either some paint swatches that you get from the hardware store or a couple of randomly chosen color pencils, and ask them to go out into nature and match the color with something they find there. Or there are several games and challenges in the book How to Teach Nature Journaling by John Muir-Laws and Emily Ligren, and they involve nature journaling and then guessing with a partner or with the group a plant that's been drawn or a leaf, matching it with the nature journal. So be sure to check out that book. If you haven't, I will leave a link in the show notes for this episode. There are other things you can do like a string safari. This is also in the book I just mentioned, where you can lay out a piece of string in a circle and then nature journal what's inside that circle. And isolating this little patch of earth gives the child a focus and a challenge. With this age group, you can really dive into sensory awareness. So ask them to nature journal about what they're experiencing with all 5 senses. This can be really wonderful, especially if you're in a garden where you can taste something. Make it fun, keep it enjoyable, and also bring in these extra skills and prompts. So words, pictures, and numbers. I wonder, it reminds me of. There are so many ideas in the book, How to Teach Nature Journaling. The final age group is the teen years, so ages 13 to 18. At this age, the children are really starting to deepen their conceptual understanding of the world and getting really deep into study areas of literacy, numeracy, science, and art. Nature journaling is perfect for encouraging them to go further in all of these areas. To encourage mathematical thinking and finding numbers in nature, you can focus on counting and measuring, finding data in the landscape in really creative ways. It can make mathematics fun and exciting. You can do species surveys or use tallies for different species. You can go into stem and leaf plots, histograms, bar charts. You can really dive deeply into these different areas. You can write poetry. You can have them write stories about what they're experiencing. There is just so much scope for diving deeply into different areas of study. But one thing I want to talk about for this group, which I think is just as important as science and maths at this age, is finding solace and safety in nature. Adolescence can be a really confusing time for children. Things are changing quickly. You can feel muddled, you can feel confused about school and social life, your body changing, your family dynamics. And nature can have a calming effect and provide a place to reflect, a safe place to be. I recommend building some time into the schedule for personal reflective writing while in nature. And let nature be a place that they can go to decompress, to de-stress. Building that as a habit can be really healthy at this age. So a few extra activities that you can do with people of this age. You can help them identify species using field guides. You can map the landscape in all different ways. You can use cross sections. You can document events using a comic strip. You can get into biometrics, which is really fun. That means finding part of your body that has a specific measurement and then measuring nature using your body. You might know that from the tip of your thumb to your knuckle is 1 inch, and then you can use that to measure something in nature. You can do BioBlitz or biodiversity days where you go out as a group and document all the species in one area. You can track change over time with your nature journal. You can help them develop questions and hypotheses and test their hypotheses using their nature journal. And another really amazing part of this is giving them opportunities to mentor younger children. So children in this age group will learn a lot and pass on a lot if you give them the opportunity to show younger ones how they nature journal, how they spend time in nature. And this gives them a sense of achievement. It gives them a sense of strength and autonomy. And there is so much benefit to having the different age groups interacting with each other. So that's some of my thoughts on nature journaling with children of different ages. There are lots of links and more information that I haven't chatted about here that I've written into a blog post. And the link for this blog post is in the show notes for this episode. So go there over to my website and have a look and leave a comment there if you're interested in keeping this conversation going. I'd love to know your experience with nature journaling with youngsters. These are just my thoughts on the topic, but I'd love to hear yours. So once again, I want to say thank you so much. I feel like episode 50 is really significant, and I'm looking forward to the next 50. And I have some really exciting guests lined up, and I don't want to spoil the surprise, but stick around because there's going to be some really wonderful interviews coming up, and I can't wait to share them with you. Thank you so much for listening. See you next week.